Thank you for joining us today. Can you start by introducing yourself and your current focus in your work with generative AI?
Of course. My name is Peter Valcro. I'm one of many people working with generative AI at the moment. My research focuses on exploring how we can use generative AI in production settings, particularly for content creation. It's fascinating because the tools are evolving so rapidly. Every month, there's a new set of tools entering the market, and the quality of the outputs, whether video, photography, or imagery, keeps improving at an extraordinary pace. It's truly a revolution in technology and in how we think about producing content.
That sounds exciting, but also overwhelming. How do you think people are coping with this rapid change?
Not everyone is keeping up, and I don't blame them. It's a lot. There's so much happening. Personally, I work on projects with these new AI tools, and even for me, it feels like choosing a weapon of choice that can change weekly. That's unsettling for many because we're creatures of habit. We like to get comfortable with tools and workflows, but with generative AI, every day feels like a fresh start. For me, that's exciting. It's a mindset thing, but I understand how challenging it can be, especially for those who aren't in research or educational roles like I am.
So, your position as a teacher and researcher gives you the time to explore these tools. How does that differ from someone in a more commercial environment?
As a researcher, my job is to experiment and explore without worrying about immediate financial implications. But for entrepreneurs or professionals in commercial environments, it's different. They need to deliver results while trying to grow their businesses. And keeping up with AI advancements requires time they often don't have. That's why I strongly believe every company, even small ones, needs to dedicate time for research and development, or they risk falling behind.
What impact do you see generative AI having on traditional craftsmanship, especially in fields like design?
That's a crucial discussion. If you're a commercial designer, your work has a purpose: to communicate your client's message. Traditionally, tools like Photoshop were central to that process. But now, generative AI tools are changing the game. These tools can produce beautiful results based on the instructions you give them. This means a lot of the manual craftsmanship in digital design is fading away. It's not necessarily a bad thing if we're forward-thinking, but it does require saying goodbye to old habits and tools, like a carpenter putting down their hammer and saw for something entirely new.
Do you think this shift will be difficult for the creative industry to adapt to?
Yes and no. The creative industry is unique because it blends creativity with craftsmanship. In IT, constant change is the norm, but that's not as true for creative fields. However, in this case, there's no choice. You have to jump on the AI bandwagon, or you'll get left behind. I believe the industry should carve out time in their processes to explore and experiment with new tools. The good news is that generative AI is improving to the point where you can produce consistent, high-quality results.
Does this mean traditional skills are becoming less relevant?
Not at all. While generative AI handles much of the heavy lifting, there's still a need for judgment and expertise. For example, when I create trailers or films with AI, I still handle the editing myself. Not because I'm a control freak, but because current tools can't edit the way I do. That said, I believe within a year or so, those tools will exist. At that point, your role as a creator will shift to more of a director or curator, evaluating and guiding the AI's output.
How are you preparing your students for this shift?
We're teaching them to think AI first. Instead of relying on traditional tools like Photoshop with endless layers, we emphasize judging and directing AI outputs. They need to understand what works, what doesn't, and how to steer the tools toward their creative vision. Generative AI allows for rapid experimentation, which is a huge advantage. Ideas that seemed too complex to try a few years ago can now be tested in minutes.
What's your advice for professionals hesitant to embrace AI in their workflow?
My mission is to convince people to think AI first. Whether it's brainstorming with tools like ChatGPT or using AI-driven video production platforms like Runway, start with AI and see where it takes you. The knowledge base of these tools is immense, and they can offer solutions or ideas you might not have considered. It's a new way of working, but one that's incredibly rewarding if you're open to it.
Thank you for this interview, Mr. Peter Valcro.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.